Do you ever feel stuck in life? Maybe you feel stuck in a professional career that just isn't going the way you want it to go, but you have all these expectations on you. Or maybe you feel stuck in a relationship where you can't leave, but you're unhappy. Well, you're not alone. And my guest today is Annie Tam. She is a licensed professional counselor and an expert in helping people get unstuck. She works with working moms. She works with entrepreneurs and perfectionists, and this is an area of expertise. So we're so excited to sit down with you today, Annie, and to talk about really counseling and also coaching people through the periods of unstuckness. So thank you for taking time.
Yes, thank you so much, Jennifer, for having me out. I'm very excited to talk about getting unstuck and what that looks like and the various ways that we can get ourselves unstuck.
All right, let's start at the beginning. Like, why do we get stuck? What does it look like when we are stuck?
Yeah, so oftentimes it's people that are just kind of done. They're done, they are overwhelmed, they have decision fatigue, they cannot move forward. And, a lot of times these are people who they have been going and going and going their whole lives. They're achievers, and all of a sudden they're just in a place where they don't know why they're in this place, and it's a really uncomfortable place for them to be because it's somewhere that they're not usually finding themselves.
I imagine, especially for people who are achievers, when you're used to being the decision maker and you suddenly find yourself in a situation where the decisions maybe are not really yours to make, or you're not, I don't know, like, you're not in control of all the things that are happening too.
Right, which is really difficult whenever you find yourself not in control. And sometimes they are, but it's just, there's so many different moving parts to the puzzle now. Maybe it was a little bit more, simple before, and now, say when I'm working with entrepreneurs and their companies have grown so much, now they're working with all these different people. And so there's so many elements to consider, and it becomes overwhelming to them.
Oh, overwhelm.
Yes.
I'm feeling it right now as we sit here. And it's all the different interests, right? So, when you get married, you have your spouse's interests that you're taking into consideration. And now maybe you've expanded your family. So, you're having to consider other in-laws and for holiday schedules, for example, right?
Nice.
So now you've just doubled the considerations. Then you have children, and now you have to consider sleeping schedules, and it's the same thing with the business. As your business grows, you're just the number of interests that you have to take into consideration grows.
Yeah, think about it. You start with just you, right?
Yeah.
And so you're making decisions based on just you and what you need and want, and where you foresee yourself going, and then you just start adding in, as life goes on.
And I'm also thinking, I'm revealing a little personal information here, but for a lot of us who grew up where, taking care of other people and pleasing other people was sort of the determining factor of, am I doing this right? Is everybody else happy?
Yes.
Right? That also can weigh very heavily when suddenly you have all these competing interests.
Absolutely, yes. Because, with those people-pleasing personalities, it's like you're getting feedback, though, oftentimes, right? And then you're kind of left, whenever let's say you're in your family of origin and you're trying to please and, make everybody happy and all of that. And then you kind of find yourself, you've grown up a little bit. Well, now there's not really somebody who's, telling me based on how I'm serving them or helping them, how good of a job I'm doing, right? And now it's like, okay, well, I don't know, how am I doing? I don't have this marker to tell me and show me, and so that just adds to kind of that overwhelm and that feeling of being stuck and not sure how to move forward, because a lot of people rely on the extrinsic motivation and what they're getting from others.
Right, that the positive feedback when you're not getting that positive feedback because your newborn's still crying or whatever else is going on. So how do we step into a new paradigm? Help us break this down. How do we move out of overwhelm?
Yeah, so moving out of overwhelm, it's going to look like a lot of different things. But I think, one thing that we have to do is always go back to what is most important to us. So I always start there with anybody, and let's figure out what are those values that mean the most. So, let's identify them and let's see, what areas of my life am I leaning into those, and what areas am I possibly not, that I can kind of, shift out to the side for a little bit and really focus on what matters most, because that's going to identify our priorities, right? We have a million things that we can do all the time, right? We all have to-do lists that are just unending. They just keep going. If we wanted to, we could just literally keep going all the time, right? With item after item. But that's not at all practical. We're not going to be able to get to all those items, right? So we really need to figure out a system of prioritization, and that is going to go back to our values and what is most important in our lives right now that we focus on. So I usually start there in values exploration, identification.
What does that look like? Because I hear that a lot. Like, you got to have clarity around your values, know what your values are. What are the most important questions, and how do I really begin a values exploration? Is this journaling? Is this doing it with somebody else? Like, what are the most effective tools for really exploring those values?
I think, a couple of things. I think it depends on your personality, but oftentimes working with somebody else, whether that's a therapist or a coach or just your best friend, to really help ask good questions for you to understand, what has been important to you until now. And, really narrowing down in this moment, at this age or season of your life, what is most important. I love using games or cards. So they're values identification cards. And they're super helpful because they have often lots of values that you wouldn't even really think about. Because everybody's like, oh, I value my family. I value my friends. I value love. I value faith, right? Like
right.
The big blaring items. But when it comes to all of the other little things, they kind of forget about those. And it's hard to just think of those automatically. So there's some really great values card decks out there.
Is that something you can get on Amazon?
Yes, you can get them on Amazon, absolutely. And any of them are going to be really good. So they're just kind of giving you ideas and words, basically, that you might not think about otherwise. I love Brene Brown's list of values, so oftentimes I pull that out. And it's a pretty extensive list. Sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming to people whenever they see it all, potentially. So we really kind of go through and identify like brackets. So we go through maybe like 5 or 10 of a time in that list, and we'll go through that chunk and identify what is most valuable to us in that. I also try to get people into their bodies in most of the work that I do. And so I'm wanting to know how their body is reacting whenever I say one of those values. So how does your body respond? What thoughts or potentially memories come to mind whenever I say this? So, really helping them connect to that value to see if it is important.
So practically speaking, like, what is a good rule of thumb for how many values should I aim to have that are kind of the core values that I'm operating?
3 to 5.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Because there are so many. There's so
many
good values that I want to have.
None of them are you going to be like, oh no, I don't like that, right? I mean, most of them are going to be all positive things. Yeah. So it is really hard to identify and narrow down. But you also have to look at it like these can change, right? You usually have kind of a core, 3 or so that don't typically change. But these can also change and rotate with seasons that you're in, maybe those other 2 or 3, right? So don't look at it as like, a lot of my perfectionists, like, I got to do this right and it has to be done, perfect the first time.
Yeah.
This is like a flexible exercise. This can change. It's okay. So.
That's so funny because we've got to get this right.
It's what everything is built on. What if I get it wrong, right?
Do I have the right number of values? Did I pick the right values? Am I using the right values correctly? Well, then what do we do with those values? So I have these values. I kind of understand now the operating system, because that's what I'm thinking. Whether you identify the values or not, those values are your operating system, right?
Right.
If I value being busy, whether I'm aware of it or not, if that's what I grew up and that was the value, that, your value is being busy, I'm going to be busy. And I'm going to prioritize being busy over doing other things that might be more meaningful. Right?
Yeah.
And then I can end up in that conflict.
Exactly. Yeah. So you have to really, identify what is important to me right now. So maybe I've always been busy. And this is also helpful to ask others, like maybe family members that you're close to or friends that have known you for a long time. What do you think I value? Right? It's actually a helpful exercise, because they might mention some things that you're like, that's not in my top 5. And I don't know that I want that, right? Like maybe busyness, isn't a value, but maybe you change that to like productivity, right? So change the word a little bit around, and it can provide more meaning, right? And then we have to identify, as a therapist, and I'm like, well, let's look at productivity, and how can we actually like reframe productivity? How can we redefine productivity? Because these are people, and like myself, I'm an Enneagram 1. One of the things that, for 1, is that you need to rest so that others feel like they can rest, because we're just constantly going so action oriented, right? Well, so I had to start looking at rest as productivity. What does rest produce for me and others?
Oh, whoa.
Whoa.
Whoa, I'm having a moment because I'm equating rest, but you're right. There's so much that comes out of rest, so much that's necessary with rest. You think of it as the opposite of productivity, but really, if you don't have that rest, you're not going to be productive.
You can't get anything done.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
Got to take it a little bit deeper.
All right. So we've identified these values, and then we begin to look at the things in life.
Yes.
And I'm just imagining, as we're talking through this, how important the awareness is of values, because, like I just said, there are probably a lot of things that are operating that we're not aware of that creates a conflict. And I know conflict and resistance is exhausting.
Oh, yes.
I feel that.
Absolutely. It 100% is. Yeah. So then, I say we got to create some goals, right, that are based on these values. What are some values-based goals that we can set for ourselves? And so then we get to our to-do list and all the things, right? And it's, are these aligned to our values that we have identified? Does this fit into one of these goals that we've created for ourselves, these meaningful, life-giving goals? And then there's practical tools to get unstuck. My favorite is do, ditch, delegate. So
okay, tell us about do, ditch, delegate.
I'd like to say I created it, and I might have. I honestly don't remember, but it's something that I use with all my clients, because, again, they're high achievers. They're producing all the time, and they're not delegating very often. So do, ditch, delegate. You have your list, your to-do list for the day, and you're going through it and spending about, less than 5 minutes. What is it that I need to get done today that is aligned with my values? What is it that I can ditch for today and punt to another day and go ahead and time block for it? And then what can I delegate to somebody else? Is there anything on this list that I can delegate? And trying to get, depending on how long your list is, we're trying to get at least 1 or 2 things delegated out. So working with business owners, I find all the time, like they're just taking on so much of it, right? Whether that's because it's easier for them to do it.
Just easier in the moment, just like knock it out.
Like me, you get doing the dishwasher. I don't have to redo it, right? If somebody does the dishes wrong. But, it's easier to do it, or, they have control over it then. There's multiple reasons why we do that, right? But it isn't necessarily making us, effective and utilizing our time wisely. So what can we delegate?
And do you spend time teaching people how to effectively delegate? Because I find one of the biggest challenges as a business owner that that I struggled with early on was really delegating well, because I would throw a task at somebody, but not really teach them how to do it.
Yes.
And so then I would end up having to pull it back, right?
Yes.
And then that just created more time. And that's where the lesson that I was learning was that it was just easier to do it myself. So it was really hard to delegate.
Yes.
But there are good strategies for delegating where you actually are getting things off your plate.
Yes, absolutely. Teaching someone how it needs to be done, and some of those are things like I mentioned the dishwasher. That's my issue, right? Like
Right.
I delegate my husband to do the dishes. Well, he needs to own that and do it however he wants. And if I have to dump out a cup of water into the sink whenever it's done, then I have to do that, right? But at least it's clean. So
Or
and he
run
did
another
something,
plate
right?
the second time.
Or do that, right? And in business, so there's some things that you can just give, and you have to tell yourself, I'm going to be okay
Yeah.
no matter what that comes out looking like, right? Because it's off my plate and I don't have to worry about it. Then there are other things as a business owner that, you're delegating out that, you need to set aside time and potentially training, ideally, someone else in your firm or business who can then oversee the things that are delegated out. So, maybe there's an associate or somebody that you can go to and say, like, this is something I'm going to start delegating out. Let's go through this and come up with steps so that you can then train as we continue delegating
Right.
down the line, right? And so maybe it's not always you doing the training and making sure it's done well, but you're also training someone else above someone else who's going to do it, right? So just kind of coming up with a good system. And I think creating an actual procedure, a system on paper or email, or we put all of our procedures in our folder on our drive, right? That everybody can access it when needed. So yes, but you have to take the time, which is why oftentimes we don't do it and we just do it ourselves because we're like, well, I'm going to get it done so much faster,
To just do it. But it's not like you save yourself quantum amounts of time. I don't even know if I'm using that correctly, but when you actually invest a little bit in
Yes.
training somebody well, then it just opens up. Because you
Absolutely.
do. Now let's talk about we're getting unstuck in your personal life, and it is, I think, for a lot of people, maybe especially a lot of people who may be watching this, the concern is you get stuck in a personal relationship and working through really feeling powerless in the relationship, maybe feeling like this is a relationship I don't want to be in. How do I move through this? I can't control my other partner. I get it. I've learned that. I have no control over the other partner, but lo and behold, I don't like who I am in this relationship. What are some of the steps somebody who's feeling that can start to take to turn things around for themselves?
Yes. So I would say in that situation, first, if they're not in counseling of some sort, I would really recommend getting into counseling to really focus on and zero in on what it is that you need. So, and how are you taking care of yourself, right, during this time? Because if we are finding ourselves in a relationship that we really don't want to be in any longer, and it is not life-giving, it is sucking our life away, then we need to make sure that we're tending to ourselves well, and going through with somebody else who is trained, what are the big questions to ask? What do we need to boil it down to? And then how do I approach my partner about this? So if it's a safe relationship, then that's something that you can approach your partner. If you haven't tried therapy before, maybe they're open to that, and so breaching that subject and trying to see if that's something that they could do to really figure out if we can make this work, or if not. Maybe it's discernment counseling, right, to try to figure that out. But I would say that, oftentimes we go back to the values exercise. It's so important. And when we find ourselves in relationships that we aren't willing to do any more work, and it's not working and it's not enjoyable, there's probably some value there that's not being respected. And so identifying that gives you language then that you can approach your partner. It's much more meaningful than just saying, I don't like you anymore.
Right.
Or, like, you're
really
really taking all my energy out, and, I think we're done, or whatever, right? Like, it makes the conversation a lot more meaningful, and then they are given the opportunity to respond to that. Like, if
I always think the default is to put the focus on the other partner and how they're not meeting your needs, right? And why, and blame, and it's the blame. That's sort of the default. I mean, I get it.
Yes.
And to blame them for why you're feeling stuck. But the truth is, I think if you're feeling stuck in that, right, that's really your work.
Yeah.
And the great thing is you can change that. You actually can change it. You can take your power back in that moment.
Absolutely.
And make a big shift. And it may mean leaving the relationship.
Yeah, potentially.
And that's the thing I think a lot of people don't want to face.
Right.
Is that it may mean making big shifts in your life, but doing that with the support of an awesome counselor and coach can, great things can happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. We know we cannot control anybody but ourselves, right? And so if we take that step to seek out a therapist or a coach or somebody to work with, that, we really focus on ourselves and why am I feeling stuck and why do I feel like I can't leave? What's going on there below the surface? It's so empowering.
And get clarity. I love that. Okay, we've talked about counseling and we've talked about coaching. That's a little confusing for a lot of people.
Yes.
Can you help break it down? What is
Yes.
the difference? When do I need a counselor? When do I need a coach?
Yeah. So it can be very confusing. What I often say to just kind of distinguish between the two in a very easy way is that counseling looks at the past, whereas coaching looks at the future. So, if someone has not done counseling and they have a lot of stuff coming up because of their family of origin, I'm going to probably recommend counseling. Anybody that comes to me and they don't really know I don't know if I need counseling, I don't know if I need coaching. Most times if they have never had counseling, I'm going to probably recommend counseling because we all have stuff, right? And our family of origin plays a huge role in how we act today, right? And the decisions we make and who we are. And so I think it's really beneficial to go through that process first. Some people will come strictly for business coaching. So these are usually business owners who maybe they want to scale, maybe they're having some conflict within their staff, and they want to figure out how to work with that. Lots of different reasons. And so that would be more of a coaching relationship. And then, there are those who they've done a lot of work in their past and they're ready to move forward. And so we're going to go into coaching. We're going to identify the values. We're going to set values-based goals for ourselves, and we're going to do the work. Oftentimes that looks like, and I use EMDR a lot, so just kind of around this.
What does that stand for?
Yes.
You hear that phrase a lot. What does it stand for? Tell us about that.
So EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So it was discovered in the 80s, this modality, and it's fascinating. The whole point of it is to get a trauma and the emotions in the body associated with that unstuck. So an easy way to describe it is when you go through anything, and we can trauma, big T trauma, little t trauma, when we go through things that are not normal. And
unpleasant. It can be unpleasant,
it can be
right?
Unpleasant. It could be
horrible. It can be
yeah. But they don't get processed through the brain in the same way that very normal things get processed. So then they become stuck, and or can become stuck, and then get triggered by things that may or may not seem related later on. And it's our body, right? Our body keeps the score. Our body holds on to that.
It's a good book.
Great book. I love it. And so EMDR, basically you use bilateral stimulation. So you're engaging the right and the left brain hemispheres to unstick the trauma that has been there for a while. It could be recent. It could be something years back in your childhood.
And it has really, really dramatic shifts in how you respond to stimuli, right? So like you can have very different begin to respond in very different ways, very different patterns. So if
Yes.
something used to make you really, really angry, if somebody looked at you a certain way or something, you know, you now have you have a different response to that. You're not so just triggered off the
Yeah, may not be as triggered or just your nervous system. You know, we're seeking to really
reset
that nervous system. We identify during the process what are the negative beliefs that you're believing. Sometimes I even start with that with people. What are some negative beliefs that you have in your life? We kind of look at those as themes and okay, well, where do we think that started? And then that kind of allows us to identify the disturbances is what we call them in EMDR that we're going to target. But EMDR can be used for all kinds of things. So I actually use it for performance enhancement all the time. So just building confidence in leaders, could be athletes. It was originally created for athletes and performers, but we can use it for anybody who is trying, maybe they have some like insecurity in an area and we're identifying where that started. And we might do a little bit of just targeting a couple past things in there, but then we're really focusing on the future, present and future. And what is it that we want to believe about ourselves and really working to see and visualize ourselves through bilateral stimulation, doing XYZ really well in the future. And it's really, really neat. So I can kind of use that with both my counseling and coaching clients. I would just use more of that performance enhancement technique and resourcing for that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. You founded Mend Counseling
Yes.
here in Dallas. And just tell us a little bit about your group there and the work that you all do.
Yes, we are turning 10 in January, which is so exciting. Yes, so Mend Counseling is a collaborative group practice. We are a boutique practice located primarily at Mockingbird Station. We are also in a couple doctor's offices as well, but there is a team of 12 clinicians there who see all ages starting at age 2 through the lifespan, and we see all kinds of people, and we specialize in all different things. So we love to collaborate. We love to consult. That's a huge part of our practice is the consultation piece. We even share clients all the time. So, you mean
you're consulting with each other?
We're consulting with each other. Yeah. We're also triaging with other, clinicians in our clients' lives, whether that be their OB-GYN or their psychiatrist. So we're making sure to consult with everybody so we can really
have a holistic
support, more holistic, and really give full support to that client. We see lots of families and family members, but so we can kind of, somebody is doing EMDR with me and they have insomnia, I might send them to Stacy for CBTI for insomnia. Maybe they need to get out of their thinking brain, get a little bit more creative. I might send them to Adriana, who's our expressive arts therapist. So we all do different things and we share clients all the time just to make sure that we're giving them the support that they need when they need it.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here and just taking a little time.
Thank you.
And as we end today, I forgot to ask you the question. What message of hope do you have for somebody maybe who is feeling stuck right now, wherever they are in life?
Yes, I would say if you're feeling stuck, there is hope. So take some time to look within to really discover who you are and what is most important to you. And remind yourself that you can get out. You can get out. You have all of the strategies and skills that you need is within you, and you can trust yourself.
I love that. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel and stay tuned for more content like this. And thank you for joining us. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. This was wonderful.